What's up, YouTube? I recently watched Natural Hypertrophy's story about how he almost went on steroids, and I was a little bit surprised by it, to be honest. I'd always heard these stories about, hey, I almost went on steroids, but this or that improbable series of events happened, and that's what kept me from going on, and I'm really glad that I did. And, I'd always kind of thought of those as a little bit of a kind of fake attempt to seem relatable to people, like, just because from my own perspective, I've never really been tempted at all. So I always assumed that somebody that was going to be a lifetime natty probably would feel the same way that I did, just really not any serious temptation. But NH is somebody that I do believe is genuine, and obviously I believe he's natural, so it gave me a little bit of pause for reflection there, because some of my assumptions turned out not to be true. And when I say that I've never been tempted, I'm really not saying that to grandstand or try to put myself on a pedestal or anything. It's just something that has never occurred to me. And there are some good reasons for that I want to get into later. I think I'm going to do a full video on why I've never been tempted. There are some good reasons that I want to share that I think will be helpful. But real quick, I just want to address, what separates me from NH in this situation, because a lot of the rest of the video I related to a ton. I was in that exact same spot, especially when you consider the one that he just did about worst program ever. That was really relatable because I was in a very similar situation, strength coping, trying to max out all the time but never making any progress, all that stuff. The only thing that was different, honestly, was that I was a little bit better at it. My strength coping got me up about a plate on him in most of the lifts. Ended up getting to a 600 deadlift, 385 nasty touch and go bench, 500 back squat, 500 for like 2 Zercher squat, 240 power clean and strict press. So nothing to write home about. Physique was terrible, but as strength coping goes, my strength coping was a little bit better. And I do think that played a role in why I didn't get that despair the same way, because while my physique was terrible, probably I ended up with a worse physique out of it than he did, because at least he had big biceps, if nothing else. And I didn't even have, to this day I don't have big biceps, but at least I had strength that was decent, and that felt pretty cool. Because this is back in the day before all the deadlift bar inflation and sumo inflation. This was back when a 900 deadlift was something crazy that no one had really seen before. So a 600 pound pull was actually pretty cool back at that time, believe it or not. And that was conventional, obviously. So it was actually pretty cool at that time. So I felt a little bit good about myself. And I'm saying this because, NH always brings up the points about strength coping, and I think he's dead on. I think there are a ton of people out there. I can point to examples. I'm not going to be mean in this case, but there are definitely some examples of people who are strength coping, or maybe even not that strong, but training for strength as a cope when really they would like to look different than they currently do, and they're kind of shortchanging their actual goals. That's 100% a real phenomenon. So he's dead on it. As far as that being a real thing, like people, using strength when what they really like is a better physique. However, that being said, there's something to be said for, at least if you're going to strength cope, do it well, And I do think that getting to that next level a little bit, where if not obviously not world class or great or anything, but at least a little bit noteworthy, puts you in a little bit of a different space mentally than trying really hard to be strong, and the best you do is a 495 deadlift. It's 100 pounds, but it makes a little bit of a difference, I think. And that, I think, was one component in what kept my head above water to the point where I never really even thought about taking steroids or was ever tempted by it. Like I say, I'm going to do a full video on some more, I think, important things, but that is a factor to consider. And as far as why that happened for me, I was just as dumb as he was. As far as he said his program was dumb, and I did the same stuff, so I can say the same thing about myself. The only thing that I did differently, I think I was a little bit better about using reps on back squat. I was a little bit better about going into the high rep range to build some actual strength, and I was a little bit better about doing variety. I was doing power cleans, I was doing jerks, I was doing behind the neck push presses. I was doing a little bit more variety, and I think that helped build a better base of strength. As far as my deadlift goes, I didn't start doing that till my 4th year of lifting. So even though I just maxed out all the time on deadlift, it actually worked. I took my deadlift from from like 405 to 600 pretty much purely by maxing out. But it was because I had built a good base of strength using power cleans and back squats and a little bit of a more productive rep range. I'm not saying they were good. They were still like powerlifting style back squats, but I did go to the higher reps. And I think I was a little bit better than he was, probably about, I was still a complete ego lifter, but I diversified my lifts that I was ego lifting in. And I think not nearly to the degree that I do today. I was mostly staying in the realm of conventional lifts, if you count power cleans, which I did. But still a little bit of variety and a little bit better rep range. Took my strength coping to a little bit of a higher level. So that was a positive thing, even though we were pretty much on the same program, like mentally speaking, you know what I mean? So all that to say, I think the strength coping phenomenon is absolutely a real thing to be worried about. But sometimes we need coping mechanisms, and it's not necessarily always bad to have a little bit of a crutch that keeps your head above water, right? And I think for naturals, it's good to have that little cope in your back pocket. It's good to have a little something to feel good about in your back pocket. You can't lose sight of it and let that get in the way of your real goals. So if you do just want to look good, and that's not me. I've always wanted a balance. I maintain that. I'll never pick one side. I always want to perform. I always want to look good. I'm not going to sacrifice either one. I'm not going to say I'm in this camp or that camp. I want both. I want to look good. I want to perform well. Like why can't I have both? Well, I see no reason I'm going to pursue both, right? But that being said, I let the aesthetics thing go for a while because I thought it just wasn't going to happen for me, and I coped with strength, but I coped successfully to the point where I still felt good enough about myself that I never really had that desire, along with some other factors that, again, I want to put into a better, more thought out video, right? And I think in general, it's good for naturals to have strength as a cope in their back pocket, because in terms of competing with people who are enhanced, it's a hell of a lot easier to do it in terms of strength than it is in terms of sheer size. You could, especially if you have a good looking, structure, you can definitely look better than a lot of juicers, right? I'm not saying that you can get huge and you can look better, a lot better than a lot of juicers. That's absolutely true. But in general, broadly speaking, it's going to be easier for naturals to be capable of really impressive feats of strength, whether that be weightlifting or gymnastics, calisthenics, or whatever. It's generally going to be easier for naturals to do really impressive stuff in terms of performance, in my personal opinion. Which isn't to say we can't do both. I'm always going to be chasing both, but it's good to have in your back pocket. So while acknowledging the reality of the strength coping phenomenon, let's not see it as an entirely negative thing. Let's see it as something that could be a positive. It's something to tide you over until you figure it out. And I'm not at the point where I want to be completely in terms of physique, but I've made a ton of progress and I'm getting a lot closer to what my actual goals are. So, and my strength in the process has gotten even better. So now I'm like Arnold. I'm like the Arnold of coping. I'm coping all the time. I'm coping day and night. My cope is going through the roof. I look more the way I want. I am doing stuff that I want to do all the time. I am constantly coping. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. So yeah, let's keep the reality of strength coping in mind, but let's also acknowledge the positive of it. And I think it would be good for even the hypertrophy community, the pure aesthetics community, to allow a little bit of performance mindset back in, just for that reason, because people aren't always going to figure out their perfect bodybuilding routine right off the bat. We're all going to make dumb mistakes. I made dumb mistakes. NH has admitted that he made dumb mistakes. Pretty much everybody's come out and talked about how dumb their training was at the beginning. Or for me, I'm not even going to say it was dumb in the beginning. I did what I needed to do in the beginning. It worked in the beginning. I got stuck in the intermediate trap, and I think that's more where we get stuck in kind of an intermediate trap. That's where we're doing stupid stuff. But you're not always going to figure it out right off the bat. It took me being a middle-aged man, or damn near middle. Now I am middle-aged, but it took I figured out a lot of this stuff a little bit earlier. But it took a minute for me to figure this stuff out, and it really helped to have a cope to rely on until then to assist in never wanting to go on gear, never getting completely black pilled, and still kind of feeling like I could hang with people, even though obviously my physique was not at that time where I wanted it to be. You know what I mean? So that's all. Just wanted to share this really quick. I think it was cool of NH to share that story, because it got me thinking. It's like, well, okay, some of my conceptions or my preconceptions maybe need to be reevaluated, and I think that's gonna be valuable for me to, like I said, in a more thought out video later on, go through some of the other reasons why I've just never been tempted, because those I think are maybe more important to share. But just with this being real recent, I wanted to get something out real quick to respond and give my thoughts on maybe updating our understanding of strength coping. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I haven't said any of the algorithm stuff, but if you got through all this, do the little bell thing and buy my book and all that good stuff. Okay. All right, thanks, guys.